Why be an atheist activist? When a person decides to become a religious activist and they feel as though they are, called to the priesthood, and they feel that their mission in life is to spread the good news of God to everyone around them, not that many people would really see that as odd. Many people would see a person going into the priesthood as respectable even. Someone like that would very likely be celebrated by their family as great and holy steward of the Almighty Father, worthy of so much praise for having so much dedication serving their God. But when a person decides to become an activist for atheism, a very common response for most people would probably be something along the lines of,
"Okay, but why though?"
Well, in this video, I am going to be explaining the reasons why, though, for people to become activists for atheism, and why I myself personally consider myself an atheist activist, dedicated to defeating religious doctrine in the world. But first, a little background on who I am exactly. My name is Michael Thomas Chiango. I was brought up in a Catholic household, educated in Catholic school, and nearly every single person I knew growing up was, whether adult or child, was a believing Christian, and I was no different. I sincerely believe that God existed and that Jesus Christ was my Lord and Savior, and that it was my mission to spread the good news of God to everyone around me whenever I was able to. Now, at the age of 18 years old, I just graduated from Catholic high school about 3 months ago, and I am an anti-theist, atheist, humanist, a member of the Secular Student Alliance and Recovering from Religion, dedicated to advancing the causes of the American Atheists and the Freedom from Religion Foundation wherever I can in my country. So anyone who is a religious person watching this video will likely be questioning how I possibly went through such a drastic transition, especially so relatively early on in life. And I'm not really going to get into a lengthy discussion about it in this video, mostly because I've already put out a 3-part series on YouTube explaining in detail how I went from a believing Christian to skeptical atheist, which I am planning to make public again on this new channel pretty soon. But to make a long story short, when I was a Christian, I experienced doubts about what I believed, and a lot of the things that were being taught to me in Catholic school just didn't seem to make that much sense. And rather than simply ignoring or shrinking away from those doubts, I came to the realization that if something is actually true, it will remain true even after you ask questions about it. I put in the effort to actually pay attention to what my religious teachers were actually saying. I asked them questions. I actually managed to read the entire Holy Bible from cover to cover twice. After reading the Holy Book that the religion I was raised in was based upon, without the dictation of or assistance from Christian apologists trying to tell me how I should feel about the Bible, I kind of just realized how ridiculous and immoral most of the Bible actually was, and after that it didn't take very long for actual atheist activists and debaters on the internet to make me realize that religious arguments made by apologists were really just ridiculous and didn't hold any water. So, after actually taking the time to study my religion and consult sources that did not agree with the religious perspective I was brought up in to believe, I became an atheist and I didn't believe in God anymore. It's not just a phase to be edgy or rebellious. It's not just because I want to be able to do bad things and not face consequences. It's not a conclusion I came to based on feelings. I am an atheist because I looked at the evidence and the facts and realized that they did not come out in support of any religion, whether that be Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, you name it. I don't buy it. But now we get back to the actual purpose of this video. So yeah, I don't believe in God, but why do I feel the need to be so vocal about it and try to spread my opinions and beliefs to others? Why not just keep it to myself? Who am I to be so rude and pushy with my beliefs and tell other people what they should or should not think? Well, first of all, I can't help but notice an obvious double standard with that mindset. If it's not rude or offensive for religious people to proselytize, then it isn't rude or offensive for atheists to proselytize. Oh, and by the way, oftentimes it is extremely offensive when Christians proselytize to other people. But somehow atheists are the one who are seen as offensive when they say that someone's belief that anyone who disagrees with them will be tortured forever is incorrect. Right, sure. But back to the point, I would say that there are probably about 5 main reasons for why I am an activist for atheism. And I will run through all of them in this video and give explanations. So let's get to it. Reason number 1. Religion is not true, and I care about truth. I've heard many people make the argument that, for some people, superstitions, even if they're not actually true, can be good for them. Sometimes some people just need something to believe in that comforts them, even if it might not be logical. You know what I say to that? Bullshit. I see no value whatsoever in anyone believing any untrue things. And if I currently believe anything that is untrue or illogical right now, I would want someone to come and correct me. Because allowing a person to remain in ignorance, just because it might make them feel good, is not only an insult to that person and basically implies that that person is too emotionally immature to handle facts of reality, but just flat out does not make any sense on a practical level. Like, let's just take the example of the coronavirus, which is a topical thing right now, to illustrate my point. Does it make any sense to say, well, the fact that human beings can contract a deadly disease but just by coming in contact with 6 feet of another person makes some people uncomfortable? We should just let them believe that the virus doesn't exist. No, of course it doesn't. Believing and wanting something to be true, because it might be more comfortable reality, does not make it so. Facts come before feelings. I have no doubt that religious beliefs can give people hope, but it's false hope. I am an atheist activist because I don't want people to invest their lives in lies. Even if it was the case that, religious belief really was this great, necessary, practical belief to maintain a civilized society at large, like many Christian apologists say it is, which it isn't, but we'll get to that later in the video. Even if that was the case, I would still be against religion, simply for the fact that its claims do not hold up to scrutiny, and thus should be given no credence. And well, now you might be saying to me, well, now hold on, you can't actually disprove the existence of God. So why are you so certain that you are right and that religious people are wrong? Aren't you arrogant? Well, that's true, and I admit that. I don't believe in God, but I can't prove that God doesn't exist, which is why I'm an agnostic atheist. So if you believe that an intelligent, all-powerful, all-knowing being is responsible for creating the universe, then, I don't really agree with you, but I'm not really going to try and get into a huge argument with you either. I said before that I am an anti-theist, not an anti-deist, because belief in God and belief in religion are not the same thing. Oftentimes they go together, but they are different things. Let me put it to you this way. If you believe that the omnipotent, omniscient creator of the universe exists, then sure, okay. But if you believe that in a universe of billions of galaxies and quadrillions of stars, that in this tiny, insignificant planet, in one galaxy orbiting one star, the almighty, omnipotent, omniscient creator of the universe sent his one and only Son to preach to a few thousand people for 3 years, turn water into wine, walk on water, multiply some bread and fish, and then die and be resurrected after 3 days, and the omnipotent, omniscient God chose to make this fact known to the people of the world through an old book of ancient strung-together stories, riddled with contradictions, historical and scientific inaccuracies, having extremely questionable authorship, as well as some of the most immoral cruelty contained within it you will ever read, and being so uncredible as a historical document that there is legitimate debate among historians as to whether Jesus was even a real historical figure and not merely a legend, you are not thinking rationally. I have a great appreciation for this quote by Sam Harris. If you wake up tomorrow morning thinking that saying a few Latin words over your pancakes is going to turn them into the body of Elvis Presley, you have lost your mind. But if you think more or less the same thing about a cracker in the body of Jesus, you're just a Catholic. That's not to say that if you are religious, you are automatically stupid or just insane, and that is really the reason why I care about introducing the truth to religious people. I think they are worth it. And I despise how religion often turns perfectly sane and rational people into superstitious dupes. And by the way, no, religion is not separate from or superior to superstition. It is superstition. The only difference is that religion is more organized, more powerful, and more dangerous. And it thrives, even corrupting the minds of otherwise intelligent and rational people when there is no opposition to it. But when people who are actually rational and open-minded hear the arguments against it, and realize just how much indoctrination was imposed upon them from birth to make sure they bought into it, it really shouldn't be that hard to convince those people that the religion they were raised in is really just as silly and ridiculous as all the others. Which, funny enough, leads me to my second reason why I'm an activist for atheism. It's kind of easy. Now, perhaps I'm going to come off sounding a bit lazy right now, but they say you should do what you're good at, and I feel like whenever I'm debating anyone about religion in my life, it is just a breeze to do, honestly, and that is mostly because, well, religious apologetics don't really make any sense at all, and are pretty easily torn through like wet toilet paper. I mean, seriously, nearly every single time I have a discussion or a debate with someone else about religion, I always hear the exact same stock, lazy, ignorant apologetics that I've heard hundreds of times before, and have already been thoroughly debunked by atheist intellectuals countless times over, as if the religious person I'm talking to genuinely thinks I just haven't considered a certain argument before. Probably another reason why it's very easy for me to argue against religion, particularly with religions of the Abrahamic faiths, is because I usually just know a lot more about a person's religion than they do. I mean, I've read the entirety of the Old and New Testament twice, I've read the entirety of the Quran once, and I constantly watch religious and atheist content and religious debates, so I'm definitely going to know a lot more about religion than your average religious person, who would probably just own their holy book as a decoration of virtue rather than anything they actually put the time in to study. And if I ever actually do have a discussion with a theologian apologist, because I've read the book, I can pretty easily point out when they are blatantly misrepresenting its contents. Like, for example, if a Catholic theology teacher tries to tell me that the Bible is pro-life. Yeah, that argument is probably going to resonate a lot better with someone who's never read the Bible than someone who has read it and knows exactly what it says regarding abortion. I'm someone who just generally enjoys debating other people on a variety of subjects, whether that be, science, politics, those kinds of stuff. But in regards to those subjects, even though I find them interesting and I know a lot about them, I sometimes have difficulty arguing my position for them since, oftentimes you need a lot of thorough research to back up your claims when debating complex subjects like those. But when debating religion, because it is so ancient, because it is so archaic, because it is so ridiculous, debunking religious claims is not usually a serious intellectual exercise, and all you really need is some experience with how religious people often talk and a basic understanding of Scripture. It's really not that hard. And now we get to the third reason why I'm an activist for atheism. There aren't nearly as many of them as there should be. The reality is that this caricature of atheists that religious zealots have of them being these rude, loud, aggressive people who try to force their miserable viewpoints down other people's throats is mere projection. Quite the opposite. Many atheists are way too passive about their beliefs and might not want to criticize religion because they think they might offend other people. Undoubtedly, many religious people will be offended by the things that atheist activists will say, but you must ask yourself, are they offended because you are actually spewing hateful doctrine like fundamentalist evangelists do? Or are they offended because they are triggered little snowflakes that can't handle someone disagreeing with their beliefs? I subscribe to Richard Dawkins' view that atheists should use every chance they get to denounce religious ideals, because when you continually stand up for and make arguments for a belief and position that is founded on reason rather than blind faith, many people will eventually become more receptive to your viewpoint. Widespread social acceptance of racial inequality was not achieved through those who had the rational position just keeping their ideas quietly to themselves. It was achieved through people being unrepentant in their countercultural ideas at the time, and the same goes for atheism. If it is ever going to be widely accepted and adopted by society, it will take its observers ruthlessly criticizing and mocking the opposing religious position, rather than just shrinking from conflict and keeping to oneself. Religion is not the only problem within society. It is not even the largest and most pressing issue, but it is still an incredibly important one that can be easily and significantly weakened by only a small vocal portion of the population just standing up for themselves and saying, hey, this holy book, which says that you can gain eternal life with a magical sky daddy in the clouds, if you just believe hard enough, is bullshit. I am an atheist activist because I want to be a part of that effort. Now we get to the fourth reason why I am an atheist activist, which is because, well, I enjoy it. Yes, I like studying religion. I like debating other people about their religious beliefs. I like putting out videos like these. It's fun for me. It can most definitely get tedious and boring at times, but I still get a lot of fulfillment out of my little hobby that I've made for myself. It's interesting because I was taught in Catholic school that it was my duty to evangelize and spread the word of Jesus Christ to everyone I came across, but I never really felt much of a desire to do so. I didn't have any kind of conviction in my beliefs, or in my purpose when I was a Christian because, well, those beliefs and that purpose wasn't something I developed on my own, and was instead forced upon me by authority. Because of the fact that my atheism was a conclusion I came to all on my own, with strenuous amounts of research and questioning, I have much more stock in it, and trying to spread my beliefs about religion to others is one of the reasons I get out of bed in the morning. It gives me something to do that I'm passionate about. It gives me purpose. And it was probably the first true purpose that I decided for myself without anyone else's input. I like being an atheist activist, and for that reason, I am one. Now, by this point in the video, you might be saying to yourself, well, all these reasons you are giving for being an atheist activist really just boil down to superficialities. You want people to believe the things you believe. You don't think enough atheists are defending their positions fervently enough. You are a lazy fuck who just resorts to using your intelligence to go after an easy target to get some kicks out of it. But what is really the point of going after religion anyway? After all, people are free to believe what they want to believe, and it's not like religion causes any major harm to society or individuals. First of all, yes, people absolutely have the right to believe in and follow whatever religion they want, so long as it does not cause undue intrusion onto other people's lives. I would never be in favor of issuing authoritarian edicts making it so that people are not free to practice their religion, and I am a fierce defender of religious freedom and the First Amendment. My fight against religious belief in society will be fought with words and arguments intent on changing people's minds. And that's all it will be fought with. Secondly, if you don't think religion causes any major harm to societies or individuals, you are kidding yourself. Reason number 5. I am an atheist activist because religion causes harm to people. Going through all the different ways in which religion causes harm to society, whether it be the restriction of abortion rights, the backwards abstinence-only sex education, the anti-science, anti-historical teaching of children, or the clear attempts by the religious right in America over the decades to tear down the wall of separation between church and state and impose Christianity onto the United States citizens, would have me rambling on forever. But let me just say this. Often the most well-known and adamant atheist activists are former believers. Let that sink in. I mean, all 3 members of the unholy trinity grew up in fundamentalist Christian households. I am an atheist activist who grew up a believing Catholic Christian. The point I'm trying to get at here is the reason why so many atheist activists are former believers themselves is because they have experienced the negative effects of religion firsthand, and feel a sense of civic duty to make it so that no one else has to experience what they experience because of religion. I do not want other people to grow up with the authoritarian, anti-doubt, anti-sex Catholic background that I did. I don't want people to be afraid of burning in hell forever just for questioning their beliefs like I was. And mind you, mine was the more moderate religious upbringing. I have read and listened to stories of non-theists who grew up in fundamentalist denominations and cults, and I am not kidding when I say that the religious trauma these people endured is something out of a horror movie. Horrifying beliefs and ideologies that we would expect to come out of Nazi Germany or something are normalized and pushed on young children in ultra-religious households. And because it is so normalized, and because religion is handed so much undue respect in society, the problem of widespread religious indoctrination and abuse never even gets brought up in the national conversation. Of course it can't, because the vast majority of people in this country are religious, so the idea that religion could be a major problem is foreign. The thing is, though, that while religious fervor does tend to justify and magnify tribalization and can lead to the stigmatization and ostracization of those who do not adhere to the same religion as their oppressors, I stand by the fact that the people most negatively affected by religion are not the non-believers, but instead the religious people themselves. My fight against religion is not just a case of me wanting my own team to win so I can feel superior. I want people to be free from the oppressive doctrines of Christianity and the other Abrahamic religions, so that they can live a genuine and free life that isn't based upon lies. I care about religious people. I used to be one, and I got out of that with the help of atheist activists, and that is why I myself am now an atheist activist. The fight against religion is a noble one, my friends. While religion may have once been useful in the past, whether as an organizational structure for society, a means to create a common culture, a motive for collecting and distributing funds, a source of moral pronouncements, or a clever explanation for the unexplained phenomena of life, when looking at its history, it's pretty clear that religion has been at best a necessary evil, as evidenced by the horrific tribalistic brutality it has left in its wake through the actions of religious people, and as well as the horrific tribalistic brutality found in the actual holy books themselves. Humanity is growing up, and modern technology and culture have largely gotten rid of the necessity part about religion that once gave it an ounce of credibility. Humanistic rationalism has proved itself to be far more effective at creating and maintaining prosperous societies, as evidenced by the fact that the most prosperous and peaceful societies on Earth today also happen to have the lowest percentage of strong religious adherents. Across the developed world, religion is dying, as more and more people wake up to the fact that it is an unnecessary vestigial organ of our past, and when it is removed, we often find ourselves wondering why we even once held on to it in the first place. While it is true that societies will naturally lose religion as they become more prosperous, the reverse is also true as well in many cases. A loss of religion can absolutely lead to greater prosperity and social justice in society. Just think of all the examples in our world of religion holding society back from development. In majority Muslim countries like Iran, women are treated as second-class citizens and heavily oppressed, which is excused by the population by the fact that that is just how God commands it to be. We don't have to look to majority Islamic countries to find an example of religion holding back society, though. In the United States, there was once a time when homosexuality was wholly condemned by society, and the strongest opposition to its eventual acceptance came from the Christian denominations who appeal to a holy book that states homosexuality is a crime punishable by death. It was the millennial generation, aka the most secular generation on American record, that stood up for the rights of those with deviant sexual orientations. Now, yes, of course there have been and are more liberal and open-minded religious groups and individuals that are much more open to change and progress and have helped to advance it. And I'm also not saying that just getting rid of religion gets rid of bigotry or intolerance or ignorance. It'll still exist, obviously, in society. However, getting rid of religion does result in one incredibly important thing. It makes it so that people are without excuse. When you bring into the equation the idea that there is a God who makes certain moral pronouncements and traditions that his followers have to abide by, you give religious adherents the license to say, "I will believe this and act in this way because it is the will of God." Without resorting to God and simply claiming that which we value and believe, God also values and believes it, we are put in a position where we must justify ourselves to our fellow human beings on a human level. We must give rational explanations for why we think society should be the way we want it to be. When you add religion to the equation, conversation and progress become stunted because you continually have to deal with people saying, "I don't like this because it contradicts my religious beliefs." When you get people to question what they believe to be the foundation of their beliefs, it is often the case that they will also begin to question the beliefs themselves. When I was walking away from religion, I questioned a lot of the beliefs that I used to have, and now I tend to think I am a much more moral, open-minded, and reasonable person in regards to my beliefs than I was when I used to be religious. And I think a lot of ex-theist atheists have had that same kind of paradigm shift in their thinking when making the transition from religious to atheist, where their minds are finally freed to think critically about issues with more nuance than they were ever afforded when they were previously gripped by religious insanity. In other words, I am interested not only in fighting against regressive, bigoted, conservative bullshit, but also in fighting against what is so often the source and justification of it. To all the progressives, liberals, and humanists out there who want to see society further develop and not regress back into the 1950s, defeating and disempowering organized religion needs to be a key part of that agenda. This has been the Skeptical Skeptic, aka Michael Chiango. And this has been why I am an atheist activist, and to a lesser extent, why you should be too. Always remember, be compassionate, be understanding, but most importantly, never stop questioning. Bye.